Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Game recap: Cowboys come back for 20-17 win. Forces both mystical, Mother Nature, the injury bug, and man-made, turnovers, red zone woes, were seemingly working against the Dallas Cowboys in their Sunday night showdown against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the end, though, the Cowboys were able to overcome the dark clouds and put together a come-from-behind 20-17 victory over the Steelers in this physical clash between storied franchises. But first, can it get any worse for the Cowboys at defensive end? They lose Sam Williams for the season during training camp. Both Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence are sidelined multiple weeks after being injured in the team's previous game, and then on the Steelers' very first possession of this one, rookie Marshawn Kneyland is carted to the locker room with a knee injury. Put out the help-wanted sign. If that wasn't enough, injuries then plagued the Cowboys' offensive line. On their first drive of the second quarter, rookie left tackle Tyler Guyton came up hobbling with a knee injury as well and was lost for the game. That forced Pro Bowl left guard Tyler Smith to bounce out to left tackle, with backup TJ Bass coming in to play left guard. Then in the fourth quarter, perennial All-Pro right guard Zach Martin provided a scare when he left the game with cramps, forcing backup Brock Hoffman to come in and fill that void. Thankfully, Martin returned for the Cowboys' next offensive series. Perhaps it was no surprise then that quarterback Dak Prescott was under pressure for most of the game, leading to an up-and-down night. He largely moved his team at will between the 20-yard lines in the first half, but couldn't get the ball in the end zone. That changed late in the game when he orchestrated a pair of scoring drives, including the game winner in the final seconds of play. Overall, Prescott completed 29 of 42 passes for 352 yards with 2 touchdowns. He also had 3 turnovers, a fumble and 2 picks, but overcame those obstacles to pull out the victory. His primary target on the night was wideout Jalen Tolbert, who stepped up in the absence of veteran Brandon Cooks. Tolbert had 7 catches for 87 yards, both personal bests, and hauled in the deciding score. However, it was really a coming-out party for running back Rico Dowdle. He made an impact on the ground, rushing 20 times for 87 yards, both career highs as well, for a 4.4 yards per carry average. But he also hauled in 2 passes for 27 yards and his second receiving touchdown of the year. On the other side of the ball, despite all the injuries, the Dallas defense got the job done. Steelers quarterback Justin Fields threw for only 131 yards and the Pittsburgh running attack was kept under the century mark. Play got underway with Cavonde Turpin returning the opening kickoff 38 yards, and with an illegal formation penalty called on Pittsburgh, Dallas was set up for its first possession at its own 43-yard line. And although the offense marched into enemy territory, the drive stalled at the Steelers' 36-yard line. No worries, Brandon Aubrey split the uprights from 55 yards out to give the Cowboys an early lead. While Dallas needed 6 plays to get its 3 points, Pittsburgh came back and tied things up with an 11-play drive. But the Cowboys kept their opponent out of the red zone, so the Steelers settled for a 41-yard field goal. George Pickens weak, Cowboys CB Jordan Lewis says Steelers need a receiver. It was not a banner day for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense in their 20-17 loss to the Dallas Cowboys in Week 5, and number 1 receiver George Pickens finished with just 3 receptions for 26 yards. That led Pickens to catch some criticism from Cowboys CB Jordan Lewis, who called Pickens weak on his way to the locker room. Bobby Belt of 105.3, the fan in Dallas, tweeted the video of Lewis chirping Pickens. Pittsburgh need a receiver. George Pickens weak. Pickens had just 1 catch for 8 yards in the first half, and despite being targeted 7 times, he was only able to pull in 3 receptions, and there were times in the second half where he was on the bench despite being Pittsburgh's number 1 wideout. Mike Tomlin said it was a product of Pittsburgh trying to cut his reps to get higher quality play. He wasn't less of a focal point in terms of our intention of what we wanted to do offensively, but we did want to cut his reps a little bit in an effort to get higher quality play, just in general, Tomlin said via the team's YouTube channel. It simply wasn't a good performance by Pickens, and this week, he's the target of some trash talk from an opponent after a loss. Last week, it was RB Najee Harris who was called out by Indianapolis Colts LB Zaire Franklin after a rough game, and Lewis took a shot at Pickens tonight. After Pittsburgh's final play, Lewis and Pickens seemed to exchange some words, and Pickens looked to pull Lewis down, and an official separated the two. So it seems that whatever was going on between the two on the field spilled off it, and Lewis clearly wasn't impressed with Pickens' performance. The Steelers need Pickens to play better if they want to win games. They're thin at receiver as is, and he's supposed to be their top guy. He finished tied for second on the team in receiving yards with Van Jefferson, both behind Najee Harris, who led the team with 35. If Pickens isn't playing well, it's just going to make things more difficult for their passing game, and Justin Fields threw for just 131 yards today. It was an ugly offensive performance, and it's one of the biggest reasons why the Steelers lost. If the Steelers aren't going to be able to get Pickens going, it's going to make for a long season offensively, and after a win, it's no surprise that Lewis wants to chirp after the Cowboys limited him the way they did. Steelers WR George Pickens takes unexpected cheap shot at Cowboys player after loss. NBC broadcast cameras caught Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver George Pickens taking his frustrations out on a Dallas Cowboys player after the game ended early Monday morning at Acrisure Stadium. The Steelers dropped their second consecutive game in a 20-17 loss to the Cowboys. It was a long night for both teams, as a weather delay kept the opening kickoff from starting until 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Pickens wore black for the game with a risque message for starting quarterback Justin Fields and offensive coordinator Arthur Smith that the former Georgia standout is always open. Pickens played limited snaps against the Cowboys. Per John Legend with Pro Football Focus, the number 52 pick in the 2022 draft played in 34 of the Steelers' 58 offensive snaps, the third most of any Pittsburgh wide receiver. Van Jefferson, 47, and Calvin Austin, 44, saw significantly more playing time. Following the game, Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin said the team limited Pickens' use against the Cowboys because of rep management for the big picture in Pittsburgh. Pickens wasn't less of a focal point in terms of our intentions of what we wanted to do offensively, but we did want to cut his reps a little bit in order to get higher quality play, Tomlin said. The final result on offense wasn't great against the Cowboys. The team scored 17 points at home. Pickens was annoyed after the final play of the game when Dallas cornerback Jordan Lewis appeared to taunt the third-year receiver after the play. Pickens grabbed Lewis' face mask with enough strength that the veteran defensive back fell to the grass. Officials saw the infraction by Pickens and immediately intervened to break up any potential fight. Pickens could be subject to a fine from the league for unsportsmanlike conduct for the action. It's unclear what Lewis said to Pickens before the receiver grabbed his face mask. But there were a few reasons Pickens might have been emotional after the game. The limited snaps curbed Pickens' targets. The 23-year-old pass catcher caught just 3 passes on 7 targets for 26 yards against the Cowboys. Pickens is off to a slow start this season. Entering Sunday night's game, Pickens had 20 receptions for 284 yards and no touchdowns. In training camp, Pickens was assumed to be the Steelers' number 1 receiver after the team traded Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers in the offseason. Pickens will have ample opportunity to score his first touchdown of the season when the Steelers travel to play the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 6. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of George Pickens? Leave your opinion in the comments.